Before Arnold Schwarzenegger took over the world's imagination, there was a man whose presence was already quietly shaping the future of bodybuilding. Picture a time when the sport was still crawling, long before the bright lights and massive stages we know today. And in the middle of that early landscape, one athlete stood out like a lighthouse: Reg Park. He wasn't just strong. He was a force of nature, a true pioneer who set standards that would echo for generations. From the very beginning, Reg proved that a powerful physique doesn't come from talent alone. It's built from a rare combination of unshakable discipline and a vision way ahead of its time. While most people back then were focused only on looking good, he already understood that bodybuilding needed to be something bigger, something complete. That mindset turned him into a near-mythical figure in the history of the sport. He planted the first seed of what would later be known as the perfect physique. Every rep, every heavy session, every decision to push past the ordinary became a roadmap for everyone who came after him. But before we dive deeper, we need to rewind a bit. Reg Park was born in 1928 in Leeds, England, long before he ever imagined becoming one of the greatest pillars in bodybuilding history. In fact, his first love had absolutely nothing to do with weights. He was obsessed with soccer, spending his youth on the field just like countless other British kids of the time. Nothing suggested that this athletic boy would one day take a completely different path, until one unexpected moment changed everything. One day, while passing by a local pool, Reg saw something he had never witnessed before: a man with an unbelievably muscular physique. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen. That image hit him like lightning, sparking something inside him he didn't even know he had. From that moment on, he knew he wanted to transform his own body too. He didn't have professional ambitions, no dreams of stepping on stage, just a pure, burning desire to become stronger. With this newfound passion, Reg threw himself into training. Even without experience or proper guidance, his focus and discipline quickly started paying off. In 1946, he shocked the bodybuilding world by placing fourth at Mr. Britain, an incredible achievement for someone so young and new to the sport. That result proved he had something special, something the spotlight just hadn't discovered yet. But life hit the pause button. Reg was drafted into military service and sent to Malaysia, where he worked as a physical training instructor. Even though he was far from competitions, this experience became an unexpected advantage. Military life sharpened his discipline, toughened his endurance, and showed him how to train hard even under difficult conditions. Without realizing it, Reg was building the foundation for the physique that would one day make history. When he finally returned to England, he came back with renewed determination. And that's when he proved his true potential. In 1949, he won the Mr. Britain title. That victory wasn't just a trophy, it was the official beginning of a legendary journey. It confirmed that the boy who once saw a muscular man at a swimming pool was destined to become far more than just another athlete. It was the birth of a giant. After winning Mr. Britain, Reg Park began attracting attention in a way very few athletes of his era could. His name started spreading among coaches, magazines, and bodybuilding fans around the world. And what impressed people the most wasn't just his titles. It was how fast his body evolved right in front of everyone's eyes. In just a single year, Reg pulled off one of the most impressive physical transformations ever recorded. He went from 176 pounds to a staggering 225 pounds of muscle, an increase of more than 22 kilos. And we're not talking about any kind of weight gain. This was dense, solid, perfectly balanced muscle. The kind of transformation that sounded impossible until Reg made it real. You could see the difference in specific details too. His arms, for example, went from 14 inches to a massive 18 inches in record time. For anyone who trains, that number is simply unreal. And for the bodybuilding community back then, it was proof that Reg Park wasn't just hardworking. He had a gifted genetic blueprint that responded to training like almost nothing anyone had seen before. But as he always said, genetics mean nothing without discipline. Reg trained with an intensity very few people could keep up with. Always focused, always all in. He combined a naturally powerful bone structure with a relentless mindset, and that blend is what creates an athlete capable of redefining standards. His physique wasn't just big, it was symmetrical, aesthetic, and functional. That combination is what made Reg Park the new ideal of the perfect physique of his time. He didn't just raise the bar, he redefined what was possible in bodybuilding. With his insane physical evolution, Reg Park was ready to take an even bigger step. His parents, fully believing in their son's potential, decided to fund his trip to the United States, the heart of modern bodybuilding. That move would change everything. It was there that Reg met Joe Weider, the man who basically shaped the entire sport, and who immediately recognized that Reg was anything but ordinary. Not long after arriving in the US, Reg proved he wasn't just another foreigner hoping to make it big. In 1950, he won the title of America's Best Built Man, an incredible achievement for someone who was still just beginning his international career. That one put him firmly on the global radar and made it clear he was on the verge of becoming one of the sport's biggest names. But an even more defining moment was just around the corner. In 1951, Reg stepped on stage again, this time facing Steve Reeves, the biggest bodybuilding star of that era. Reeves had beaten Reg in the past, but this time the story changed. With a more mature, denser, and better balanced physique, Reg claimed the Mr. Universe title. That victory didn't just cement his place among the greats. It signaled that he was now ready to build his own legacy. And that legacy only grew. In 1958, Reg won his second Mr. Universe. Then, in 1965, he made history by becoming a three-time champion, the first athlete ever to reach that milestone. That achievement officially elevated him to legend status, someone who didn't just dominate the sport, but permanently transformed it. Throughout those years, Reg Park became admired not only for his unbelievable strength, but also for his commanding presence and, above all, his relentless work ethic. After conquering the bodybuilding world, Reg entered an unexpected new chapter during a trip to South Africa. That's where he met Marion, the woman who would become his wife and greatest source of support. Their connection was so strong that Reg decided to move there permanently. Far from the spotlight in England and the US, that decision showed he was searching for more than fame. He was searching for purpose. Settled in South Africa, Reg quickly realized that bodybuilding was still barely developed there. Instead of focusing solely on his own career, he decided to reshape the country's fitness culture. He opened gyms, created space for new talent, and introduced the sport to people who had never even been exposed to it. His impact was so massive that, over time, the region became known as a hub for bodybuilding development. But Reg didn't stop there. He also organized major sporting events that completely changed the local landscape, including the prestigious Mr. South Africa contest. These weren't small competitions. Reg insisted on bringing in some of the biggest global bodybuilding stars, like Bill Pearl and Larry Scott, helping elevate the sport and expand its exposure. Every event became a showcase that inspired athletes and sparked interest in thousands of new fans. With his knowledge and his larger-than-life presence, Reg naturally stepped into the role of mentor. And among the many young dreamers he inspired was a teenager from Austria with sky-high ambitions, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Even from afar, Reg's influence hit deep. He became not just a technical reference, but a moral guide, showing what dedication, discipline, and humility could achieve. Reg Park's strength wasn't just a detail in his story, it was the core of everything he stood for. While many athletes focused only on sculpting aesthetically pleasing muscles, Reg followed a completely different philosophy. He believed an impressive physique only mattered if it was backed by real, functional strength, built through sweat, discipline, and brutally heavy training. For him, aesthetics without power was nothing more than empty appearance. This mindset was written all over his physique. Every muscle on Reg looked like it had purpose, density, and function. He didn't train to look strong, he trained to be strong. His famous line, "Strength is the foundation of aesthetics," became a mantra, guiding not only his own career, but also shaping the mindsets of other future icons, including Arnold Schwarzenegger. For Reg, beauty and power always walked hand in hand, and the numbers speak for themselves. Even without the equipment, supplements, or sports science we have today, Reg was lifting absolutely ridiculous amounts of weight. We're talking a 500-pound bench press, circa to 227 kilograms, a 600-pound squat for reps, approx. 272 kilograms, and a deadlift pushing nearly 700 pounds, maze to 317 kilograms. These numbers would still be impressive today, so imagine what they meant back in the 1950s and 60s. His strength was so far beyond normal that it became a core part of his legend. To build that brutally functional physique, Reg created one of the most influential training methods in history, the famous 5x5 system. On paper it looked simple, but its principles were powerful. 2 warm-up sets to prep the body and the nervous system, followed by 3 heavy working sets with steady progression. No endless workouts, no fluff, no illusions. The focus was on mastering compound lifts, improving technique, and strengthening every part of the body, especially the lower back, which he considered the foundation of true strength. Behind all of this was a very clear philosophy. Reg believed size and strength were inseparable, that compound lifts always delivered more results than isolation exercises, and that training to total exhaustion was a guaranteed path to failure. In his view, a workout should make you stronger, not wreck you. This balanced, intelligent, and forward-thinking approach shaped not only his own career, but also the mindset of athletes who would go on to dominate the sport. As the years went by, Reg kept proving that his strength went far beyond numbers and titles. In 1970, he took part in one of the most symbolic moments in bodybuilding history, a direct showdown with his own protege, Arnold Schwarzenegger. For the crowd, it felt like watching a symbolic passing of the crown. For Arnold, it meant facing the man who inspired him to start training. And for Reg, it was the chance to show the world that passion and discipline don't age. The following year, Reg stepped back on stage for another epic battle, this time against giants like Bill Pearl and Sergio Oliva. Even though he was already in a more mature phase of his career, his presence was still commanding. His muscle density, posing control, and sheer authority made it clear that even with new stars emerging, Reg still held the full respect of both the audience and the judges. His last official competition came in 1973, when he took an impressive second place. Even without bringing home the trophy, he proved his passion for the sport was untouched. He wasn't stepping on stage to prove anything to others. He was proving that true greatness lies in staying dedicated, even when expectations aren't the same as before. But one of the most memorable moments of his journey was still ahead. In 1980, at 52 years old, Reg was invited for a special guest appearance at Mr. Olympia in Sydney. When he walked on stage, the crowd absolutely erupted. It wasn't just an athlete performing. It was a living legend, someone whose legacy had helped build everything that bodybuilding had become. His presence brought a wave of nostalgia, respect, and admiration that very few athletes in history could inspire. That appearance felt like a celebration not only of his career, but of everything he stood for: strength, discipline, and an undying love for bodybuilding. Even decades after his greatest titles, Reg Park was still a symbol, a reminder that true giants never fade away. They simply inspire new generations to follow the path they carved. When Reg Park stepped away from competition, his impact on bodybuilding didn't shrink. If anything, it grew deeper. Determined to bring knowledge to people who didn't have access to good information, he created Mr. Universe magazine, which later became the Reg Park magazine. Through it, he shared training programs, philosophy, practical advice, and real experiences, connecting thousands of athletes to the world he helped build. It was a direct channel between the master and the generations that followed. Reg had a very unique writing style, simple, direct, and immediately useful. No complicated theories, no miracle promises. He taught exactly how he trained, how he thought, and how he viewed physical development. His articles became a massive reference throughout Europe, where bodybuilding information was still scarce. Many athletes of that era learned more from his magazines than from any coach. What impressed people most was his generosity. Even as a highly respected figure who could easily charge premium prices for his knowledge, Reg often chose to help for free. One of the best-known examples was an article he wrote for Muscle Mag in 1974. He refused any payment for it. To him, the growth of the sport was more important than financial return. That attitude revealed exactly the kind of leader he truly was, someone guided by passion, not ego. On top of writing, Reg also played crucial roles behind the scenes of the sport. He served as a judge at major competitions, including Mr. Olympia, always bringing integrity and fairness to every decision. Athletes trusted his technical eye, and even more, they trusted his character. He became an essential figure in building bodybuilding's credibility. Throughout his life, Reg Park embraced the role of educator and ambassador of the sport with mastery. He didn't just want to create champions. He wanted to build a culture, a way of thinking, training, and living. His work offstage helped transform bodybuilding into something much bigger than competitions. It became a lifestyle, a philosophy, and for many people, a path of personal transformation. In the final years of his life, Reg Park faced a challenge as heavy as any weight he had ever lifted, a skin cancer diagnosis in 2007. Even in the middle of that tough battle, he held on to the posture that had defined him his whole life, steady, calm, and deeply committed to everything he believed in. The illness never took his spirit. He kept teaching, guiding, and inspiring everyone around him, treating each day as another chance to plant a seed in someone's heart. During this time, Reg never distanced himself from bodybuilding. In fact, he stayed close to the community, sharing the knowledge he had built over decades. Many athletes who visited him back then say he still radiated the same discipline and humility that marked his entire career. Even though his body was weaker, his inner strength remained unshaken, maybe more visible in those final years than ever before. On November 22, 2007, at 79 years old, Reg Park passed away in South Africa, the country he had chosen as his home and where he left a powerful impact. His death was felt worldwide, but his legacy stayed just as alive as his stage victories. Bodybuilding lost an icon, but gained an eternal example of dedication and character. It was the end of an extraordinary life, and the beginning of a story that would continue to be told for generations. The legacy Reg left behind can't be measured only in trophies or numbers. Yes, he gave the world an unmatched level of physical strength, but he also offered something far rarer, a humility that inspired instant respect. His training philosophy, his long-term vision, and his belief in discipline shaped not just athletes, but entire mindsets. He proved that true greatness doesn't come only from the body, it comes from the soul. Reaching the end of this journey, it's impossible not to feel admiration for everything Reg Park stood for. His story reminds us that real strength isn't born just from muscle, but from determination, humility, and the desire to inspire those who come after us. And now I want to hear from you. Which part of this Titan's journey hit you the hardest? His unshakable discipline? His direct influence on Arnold's career? Or maybe his philosophy of strength over aesthetics? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your insight makes this community even richer. If this video inspired your training, your life, or your view of bodybuilding, don't forget to leave a like. It helps the channel reach more people and keeps our mission alive, telling stories that motivate and transform. And hey, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapters about the legends who shaped the sport as we know it. And if you'd like to support this project even more, consider becoming a channel member. Before you go, I've got a special invitation. Continue this trip through bodybuilding's golden past by watching the video now appearing on your end screen. It connects perfectly with everything you learned today and dives even deeper into the stories of the giants who changed the sport forever. I'm sure you're going to love it. Thanks for staying with me until the end. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, stay steady, stay strong, and never stop evolving.